In the last 24 months, an estimated $90 billion in sanctioned Iranian oil has been sold on the black market. How is this colossal sum, invisible to global regulators, being used to finance a new global war, and can the West's most advanced intelligence agencies shut it down before it's too late? This is not a matter of simple sanctions evasion. This is a story of a parallel financial system, a ghost economy. It operates in the dark, using a sophisticated web of shell corporations, compromised foreign banks, and untraceable cryptocurrency transactions to move billions of dollars per month. The objective is singular: to fund the strategic objectives of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and its global proxy network. The money is flowing. The proxies are armed. The world is on a knife's edge. This network, internally referred to by intelligence agencies as the shadow ledger, is the lifeblood of Iran's foreign policy. It is more resilient, more technologically advanced, and more globally integrated than previously understood. It is a system designed not just to survive sanctions, but to thrive under their pressure, turning Western economic warfare into a driver for its own dark innovation. The core of the operation relies on a simple premise: oil is fungible, and there is always a buyer willing to look the other way for a discount. The process begins with ghost tankers. These are vessels that engage in systematic deception. They turn off their automatic identification system transponders, making them vanish from public tracking systems for days or weeks at a time. They conduct clandestine ship-to-ship transfers in the dead of night in international waters, offloading crude oil onto unmarked vessels. The oil is then rebranded, its origin documents forged to show it came from Iraq or Malaysia, and sold to refineries and private buyers, primarily in East Asia. The payments are where the true complexity begins. Direct wire transfers are impossible. Instead, the revenue enters a labyrinth. A network of over 200 front companies, registered in jurisdictions from Hong Kong to the Marshall Islands, receives the funds. These companies exist only on paper, often with nominee directors who are completely unaware of the role they play. From there, the money is layered, sliced, and moved through dozens of accounts in smaller, less regulated banks across the Middle East and Asia. Each transaction is deliberately kept below the $10,000 threshold that triggers automatic reporting to financial regulators. It is a death by 1,000 cuts for the global anti-money laundering framework. The result is a war chest measured in the tens of billions. This is the capital that purchases the components for advanced Shahed drones. It pays the salaries of Hezbollah fighters. It provides the Houthis with the anti-ship missiles currently terrorizing the Red Sea. Every dollar laundered through this system is another dollar invested in regional destabilization. Now, a new and critical piece of intelligence has emerged, forcing a strategic reassessment in Washington and Brussels. The network is no longer confined to the developing world's financial fringes. It has established a significant beachhead inside the European Union itself, with this network now proven to extend into major European financial centers. How secure are global commodity markets from this systemic manipulation, and what does it mean for the long-term stability of the world's energy supply? The investigation, a joint operation between the United States Treasury Department and MI6, has identified a series of boutique investment firms and currency exchanges acting as unwitting, and, in some cases, witting nodes in the shadow ledger. These entities, located in at least 3 separate EU member states, are being used for the final, critical stage of the laundering process, converting vast sums of illicit cash into legitimate-seeming assets, such as real estate, corporate bonds, and precious metals. The infiltration was achieved through a multi-year campaign of sophisticated deception. Iranian intelligence operatives, operating under deep cover as legitimate businessmen and financial consultants, cultivated relationships within these firms. They exploited regulatory loopholes, particularly those related to the reporting of cross-border transactions involving non-bank financial institutions. The European firms saw only a lucrative new client with significant capital. They failed to see the strings leading back to the IRGC's Economic Directorate. This represents a quantum leap in the network's capabilities. It is one thing to move money through poorly regulated banks in high-risk jurisdictions. It is another entirely to embed your financial warfare operations inside the very system you seek to undermine. This access allows Iran's network to not only cash out its oil profits, but also to potentially manipulate European commodity futures markets. They can now hedge against sanctions, short stocks of rival energy producers, and even use their insider knowledge of impending geopolitical events they themselves are creating, to profit directly from the chaos. The implications are profound. This is no longer just about funding proxies. This is about economic warfare waged from within the West's own gates. The shadow ledger has evolved from a simple money laundering tool into a weapon of strategic economic influence. The $90 billion is not a static figure. It is capital being actively deployed to generate more capital, creating a self-sustaining cycle of conflict financing. This escalation has triggered a direct, if undeclared, response. Western cyber warfare units are now engaged in offensive operations against the shadow ledger's digital infrastructure. As these units launch targeted attacks against these financial entities, what is the risk of retaliatory cyber attacks against critical Western infrastructure, power grids, banking systems, and port authorities in North America and Europe? The battle is being fought in server rooms and on encrypted networks. The primary weapon is data. Financial intelligence units, or FINCENs, are using artificial intelligence to analyze trillions of bytes of global transaction data, searching for the faint digital fingerprints of the network's operators. They hunt for patterns, small, repetitive transfers, the use of newly created corporate entities, and transactions originating from IP addresses known to be associated with Iranian state actors. In one recently declassified operation codenamed Cerberus, cyber operators from United States Cyber Command successfully penetrated the internal network of a key currency exchange in the United Arab Emirates that was acting as a primary hub for the shadow ledger. For 72 hours, they had a god's eye view of the entire operation. They watched in real time as millions of dollars from Chinese oil sales were converted into cryptocurrency, mixed through a series of tumblers to obscure their origin, and then dispatched to digital wallets controlled by Hezbollah operatives in Beirut. The intelligence gathered was a watershed moment. It provided a complete blueprint of one of the network's most critical pathways. It led to the sanctioning of 52 individuals and entities in a single day, temporarily disrupting the flow of funds to several key proxy groups. But the victory was short-lived. The shadow ledger is not a static, centralized system. It is a decentralized, living organism. It learns. It adapts. For every node that is shut down, two more appear. The network's operators, highly skilled financial technicians trained by the IRGC, anticipated such an attack. Within hours of the Cerberus sanctions, they rerouted the flow of funds through a pre-established, dormant set of shell companies and banking relationships in another jurisdiction. The flow of money barely paused. It was a stark lesson for Western intelligence. You cannot kill an idea by cutting off one of its limbs. You must strike at the heart. And the heart of the network is not a person or a bank, but a system of trust and ideology. The current phase of the conflict has moved beyond simple disruption. The new objective is systemic infection. Western intelligence agencies are now attempting to insert corrupted data and malicious code into the shadow ledger itself. The goal is to sow distrust within the network, to make bankers in Dubai second-guess their contacts in Hong Kong, to make a proxy commander in Yemen question if the funds he just received are clean, or if they are a digital Trojan horse, tracked by every intelligence agency from Langley to Cheltenham. This strategy is fraught with immense risk. An error could lead to unintended consequences, potentially crashing a legitimate foreign bank and triggering a localized financial panic. Worse, if detected, it could provoke a devastating response from Iran's own formidable cyber warfare divisions. The NotPetya attack, though attributed to Russia, demonstrated how a single piece of malicious code could inflict tens of billions of dollars in economic damage globally. Iran possesses similar, if not identical, capabilities. The central challenge is that the shadow ledger is now deeply intertwined with legitimate commercial activity, particularly in global energy and shipping markets. A major logistics company in Asia, for example, might be processing hundreds of legitimate transactions a day, with only a tiny fraction, perhaps 0.1%, being funneled on behalf of the Iranian network. To an outside observer, or even a standard compliance algorithm, these illicit transactions are statistically invisible, hidden in the noise of global commerce. Isolating them without causing massive collateral damage is like performing neurosurgery with a sledgehammer. The latest intelligence, gathered within the last 48 hours from a human asset deep inside Iran's Ministry of Finance, suggests the network is about to enter a new, far more aggressive phase. The asset reported that the success of the European infiltration has emboldened the network's architects. They are no longer content with simply funding proxies. They are now actively seeking to acquire strategic assets. A leaked internal memorandum describes a plan to use the laundered funds to secretly purchase controlling stakes in key infrastructure. We are talking about port terminals, telecommunications firms, and energy pipeline operators in financially vulnerable nations across Africa, South America, and even Southern Europe. The document outlines a strategy to leverage these acquisitions for both intelligence gathering and geopolitical leverage. Owning a piece of a port terminal, for example, allows them to monitor military shipments and control the flow of goods. A stake in a telecom company provides a backdoor into a nation's data infrastructure. This is the weaponization of finance on a global scale. The game has changed. The shadow ledger is no longer just funding a war. It is buying the battlefield itself. And just this morning, a single encrypted message was intercepted by the National Security Agency. The contents revealed a new, far more audacious phase of this acquisition strategy, targeting not a port or a pipeline, but the very architecture of the Western financial system. The primary target was a specific type of financial institution, one that is critical to the daily functioning of Western economies: regional commercial banks. Not the titans of Wall Street, but the thousands of smaller, less defended institutions that hold the mortgages and business loans for millions of ordinary people. The strategy is breathtakingly insidious. These banks are the soft underbelly. They lack the cyber defense budgets of a global conglomerate, but they possess the keys to the financial identities of entire communities. The intercepted plan is not just to launder money, it is to create a silent, occupying army of synthetic financial identities. What if the most dangerous sleeper agent isn't a person at all, but a doctored mortgage application? A ghost in the machine, capable of acquiring debt, purchasing assets, and then vanishing, leaving a localized economic crater in its wake? The goal isn't just to move money. It's to gain the power to destabilize Western society from the inside out, one small town at a time. The danger lies not in a single, catastrophic attack, but in the slow, silent erosion of trust. This army of ghosts doesn't carry guns. It carries debt. It doesn't seize territory, it seizes credit scores and compromises civic records. Each synthetic identity is a potential landmine buried deep in the foundations of a local economy, waiting for a signal to default on a loan, to liquidate an asset, to manipulate a property deed, and then to vanish without a trace. The ultimate goal is not simply to collapse a bank. It's to gain the power to blackmail a nation. Imagine 1,000 small businesses in a key electoral district suddenly failing, their loans simultaneously called in by ghost creditors, crippling the local economy weeks before an election. This is not warfare. It is socio-economic engineering. The ability to create a localized recession on demand is a weapon more powerful and more precise than any missile. It is influence, wielded silently and deniably. This is the new front line. It is not drawn in sand, but in silicon. The soldiers are not men, but algorithms. And the battle is fought every microsecond in the fiber optic cables that lie beneath our oceans and streets. We are all living on the battlefield, participants in a conflict most of us don't even know is happening. The very stability we take for granted rests on a system of digital trust that is now being actively and systematically turned against us. The shadow ledger and its ghost army represent a fundamental shift in global power dynamics. The question is no longer if our financial system will be used as a weapon, but how we will recognize the attack when it comes. When the enemy is invisible, and the battlefield is the trust that holds our society together, how do you know the war has even begun? The crises of the 21st century are complex, hidden, and evolving faster than ever. To stay ahead of the curve and understand the unseen forces shaping our world, you need to be informed. Subscribe to global_crisis_radar. The next report could change the way you see everything.